The next item is a report on food service nutritional guidelines. Mr. Bender is here.
Good evening.
I've got it all done.
Just a brief 15 slides to go through here. I'll try to make it quick and entertaining as much as possible. So with the new regulations, we have a few changes. And I think the biggest change actually is on my side for menu planning. Menu planning is quite different than it was last year, where last year, getting ready for the school year, I sat down, took me a few weeks to put together a menu. This year it's taken a few months to put together the menus, just with the complexity that goes with it. But the good thing is once that gets in place and everything goes along with it, it's going to be easier in the future. So it's just starting out something new and getting everybody used to it. It's a big thing. And just a quick background, it's this was brought upon by the Healthy Hungry Free Kids Act of 2010. The next slide. And the one thing I want to say to people is don't be scared. These are not bad things, these are good things. And with anything new, there are going to be some difficulties, some bumps in the road that we're going to have to work on. I just want everybody to realize that. And we did start implementing some of these regulations in the 2009-10 school year. So we actually did start doing these things right away, start working in some of the new products that we knew that we would see in the future. So it wasn't a quite culture shock when all of these new things came in. One of the things that was a huger deal was the sodium restrictions, and that was a 10-year timetable that they've now put on hold. So we actually only have to meet the first level. There was 3 or 4 levels that were set up to get us down to, which is actually, we're going to be down to about half of the 12,000 or 1,230 milligrams per meal. So they put that on hold. The purpose of the new regulations is to increase the intake of fruits and vegetables for the children. That's the big emphasis here. Putting in new categories of fruits and vegetables. So really the vegetables are the focus of red orange vegetables, leafy vegetables, legumes and lentils, and a limit on starchy vegetables. Move on. Just a little information on all the schools first, and then I'll go into the changes for each individual middle school, high school, and elementary. You'll see a lot more things made from scratch and whole foods, and slowly as the years go on next year, and you'll see even more and more. To maybe eventually we may be making almost everything from scratch and whole foods. So this year it's working with putting things together. And when I say from scratch, we're not to the point where we're cutting chicken breasts and legs right off the chicken itself. We're working with other products. We're not working with any raw products yet, but I anticipate that we'll be doing that eventually in the future here, which would be great, honestly. You're going to see a lot more wraps, sandwiches, quesadillas, pizzas that are actually made from crusts and sauces and putting things together instead of just getting them pre-made from a box. Another big focus is the calorie restrictions. So they've put, and there's always been calorie restrictions on this, there's just a stronger emphasis on it now, that you can't go under and you can't go over the calories, so you need to stay within a range for both elementary level, middle school level, and high school level. Trans fat free, which we actually went to a couple years ago, so we started that. Only 10% of the weekly calories can come from saturated fats. And schools must offer those leafy green, the orange red, the beans and legumes and lentils weekly. So you'll see, I don't know if any of you have been to any of the elementary schools and seen the new garden bars that they have, but they'll have about 3 vegetables daily on those garden bars, and it's interesting to watch the kids come through, and you're seeing more and more as the weeks have went on from last week to this week that they're getting used to it, they're taking it, they're actually eating it. There's a picture at the end I'll show you of the salads. That was actually quite amazing. I felt bad because I had told the ladies they'd only be making about an average of 10 salads. Nobody's going to take salads, and it is as high as 75 at some of the schools, so it's quite impressive.
Wow.
Another thing is emphasis on components, and this is nothing new. They've always been there. It's just, I think it's now that they're focused on it and they're allowing the public, and I shouldn't say allowing, it's always been there. It's being forced upon the public to see actually now what's going on in school food service. So it's not that much of a change, that things that we weren't already doing. So the components: meat, meat alternate, bread, grain, vegetables, fruits, and milks. There's limitations on the meats and the grains per week. You can't go under and you can't go over a certain amount for each grade group. You can move on. You can I talked about this one, you can move on. Garden bars in the elementary schools are actually so far going really well. Kids are eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. And even in watching them, and you're actually seeing them actually eat them, which is really nice. And I'm kind of excited to see that. I was anticipating a lot of it going in the trash. The one big thing I think everybody was concerned about was the fact that they have to take a fruit or a vegetable now. And just to kind of go back 2 years ago in the elementary schools, we were making them take everything that was offered. So now they can take what they choose. They have to take 3 components out of the 5, and one of those 3 components has to be a fruit or a vegetable. So they still can turn things down. So they're actually less going in the garbage and getting them to take those fruits and vegetables, which the majority of the stuff they're taking are fruits. So. Middle school, some of the changes there. Water, I did eliminate bottled water, the sale of bottled water. That was not a new regulation. That was just more or less my efforts of moving away, saying there's water that's free from the tap. We provide a jug of water. You can get that for free. You don't need to buy it. We don't need to put the bottles into the environment. So that was actually one of my doings. Ice cream was no longer offered, and that was same as the high school. We're not offering ice cream, and that's because a lot of the ice creams have 10% of their calories come from saturated fat. And even though the federal government has yet to give us any guidelines on a la carte sales, this is anticipation of most likely they're going to say you need to follow our guidelines for the school lunch, just the a la carte, just like you do for the school lunch. Because they're coming, we know they're coming. They're supposed to be out in June, and they're just not out yet. So that just means they're putting some thought into it. So we'll see some change coming there. And another thing that is big is high school and middle school, I'll cover them both kind of at the same time, is pre-portioning the salad bar. And we're pre-portioning the lettuce to make sure that they're taking a serving of lettuce to actually help the students as they come through to actually get a complete meal at the salad bar, and pre-portioning the meats and the cheeses, the meat alternates to help them get a complete meal, to help them better understand a complete meal. The a la carte room has been actually moved, or we actually have an a la carte room now. Everything was in the cafeteria. Anything that isn't part of a school lunch, that isn't a component, has been moved into the a la carte room, so students can purchase from there separately with cash or money that's in their account, and then only get a complete meal. Or if they choose to come back and get extra fruits and vegetables or an extra entree, they can in the actual cafeteria themselves. Lettuce pre-portioned, talked about that. And one thing that was a concern right away was working on the menu, was that we may not be able to offer subs daily like we did in the past, or offer pizza, because of the bread grain that was involved in that was too high once you totaled it up for the entire week, because we did offer those things daily. But slowly, manufacturers are coming out with products that meet the new requirements, which then we can offer. So I'm going to see a change, and everybody will see a change in the menus as manufacturers offer us products that we can actually use, versus they just weren't ready for this big change for all schools in the United States. Because it's not just Wisconsin, it's all the United States.
Go healthy.
To the last slide. Just giving some examples of meals. Last year, a complete meal would have been an example coming through. If they wanted a sandwich, got a sandwich and a milk, that was a complete meal. this year, now with that sandwich, they have to have a fruit or a vegetable to actually get a complete meal. So you only have to have 3 of the 5 components to get that meal. And just to explain a little bit of the complexity that goes with it, the minimum serving size is a half a cup. So if a student were to come through with only a 1/4 cup of a fruit or a vegetable, and that was it, they had the sandwich themselves and had that fruit or a vegetable that was only 1/4 cup, that wouldn't be a complete meal because they have to meet that minimum serving size, that half a cup. So what we did to battle that was portion everything off at a half a cup, and it makes it kind of easy. They grab it, we know they're good to go then.
But it is unlimited fruits and vegetables.
It is. If you have a complete meal, if you have purchased a complete meal, a reimbursable meal, you can come back and get fruits and vegetables as much as you desire to eat.
Okay.
Any questions at all?
At the high school, when they're in the main cafeteria and they get a meal, is there a way that they wouldn't get a complete meal? They would get charged for each individual item if they didn't have enough components, or?
It's if they choose. The employees have been strongly encouraged to make sure that the students, when they come through the line, have a complete meal, so they will encourage them as much as possible and inform them, especially at the high school level. They understand a lot more, and it tends to be a little more difficult for them where they'll say, I don't want it, that's all right, charge me for it. So then they get charged for it. But we do make it known that you will be charged for each individual item, and we did hang up information for them so they were aware of that.
Do the majority of the students coming through at all levels take the complete meal? Or
Yes. Yeah, they do. And we've actually seen an increase this year in the high school by about 50 students that actually have taken a complete meal. So complete meals have actually went up, where the entrees that we sell in the high school has actually decreased by about 50. So the balance of kids that were, or students that were taking just an entree are now taking a complete meal. So that did actually help that.
Good.
And there was one other concern that was addressed about, caloric intake for athletes. And one thing in the high school is I want to point out that it hasn't changed from last year or any previous year where anything other than a complete meal was offered free. They would still, if they wanted to come back and get anything that was beyond that complete meal, they would be charged for it. So it's really no different than it was last year.
Jesse, are you getting many questions, concerns regarding this? Because it's obviously been in the media quite a bit. The other day it sounded like they ran a news article
COW?
WCOW. So what has been your take? We've kind of been doing our best to get as much information regarding this change out as much as possible, not only to our administrators but our staff and our parents, and obviously to you as a board, just in case you field calls.
Actually, it's kind of nice so far. We've only actually had two concerns, and both of them were about student athletes in the high school who had they felt a limited calorie intake. And I guess my suggestion was they can purchase extra entrees, and if they have a complete meal, they can come back and get additional fruits and vegetables to help with their calorie intake, if that's what they choose to do. And another concern was some students at the middle school, that there was one day in particular that I was aware of that the serving sizes, in compared to last year, were going to be a little bit smaller, and it was well noticed by the students. And I did want to point out to them, though I wasn't able to at the time, that the item that they choose, I think the day was a roasted vegetable pizza, and it was half the pizza it was last year, though actually the way that I formulated the recipe, the calories were actually almost similar to actually what it was last year. And the students came through because the sandwich looked bigger, they chose the sandwich. However, if you were actually there and wanted the calories, if that was your concern, that pizza actually had almost twice as many calories as that sandwich did. So it's perception, too, of how we look at things, and we expect things to be in a larger size when we get it, and that's really not the way it should be. We should be looking at our calorie intake and portion control, and not necessarily eating a mass quantity of food. And there was another concern that the cookies were smaller in the high school.
That would be a big concern. Those middle school kids will notice those things.
So if you get phone calls or concerns, again, the presentation's two-part. Is to, one, give you information, make you aware, but it's also so that viewers who do watch this will understand where the changes are coming from. I was told that one of the news,
Ron Kind, I think.
Ron Kind, said that they should call the schools. Well, I don't know that Jesse, Cindy, or Greg make any of the decisions as to what is served at the school at this point in time. It's all through the federal government. And as Jesse said, I think it's more the change in anything, that a lot of these things are not terrible for us. Again, we're just used to other types of foods and quantities.
It's a good change. It's just going through the adjustment of size.
You're noting that the students have been so happy to choose salads. I think it's just a really, really good prospect for the future.
This is lemon
That's
wine
great.
right here. That's over 50 salads right there, which was really a big surprise.
That's great.
So, it's awesome.
And Jesse did put on our webpage, there's a video of First Lady Michelle Obama talking about the,
Is that on there? I looked yesterday, I didn't see it.
yes, I think it's the second thing down. So there's information on the Healthy Hunger-Free
Free
Kids
Kids
Act and a video that people can watch that explains that as well.
Is there any way to track how the kids act in class after they've had a healthy meal like that versus
I don't
a bunch
know.
of
That's a good question. That's a good question.
sugar?
I did notice, the last thing I'll say is, I did notice when I was walking around watching, because I wanted to see if they're actually eating the salads. And they would eat the cheese, the meat, a little bit of the lettuce, and all of the croutons that were on the salad. And the lettuce just kind of pushed the outside.
That's just to hold everything up.
That was a little cheese. All right.
I think if the students realize, Jesse, that this food was produced by them to be on a healthier scale, they need to realize that this is a better meal for them than what they've been having in the past. So I think you're right on the money as far as what we're doing at Toma. They need to get a healthy diet, and this is more in tune to that. There's an awful lot of words put out about obesity, and some of our students are just pulling down the food a little bit. Be healthier.
Some of your business managers.
Some of your administrators.
I think you're doing it.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse.